Okay, trying this again. Hello. It's been a hot minute since I've posted on this channel. Wanted to give a quick update. I have recently added an endocrinologist and a rheumatologist to my medical team. My osteoporosis is now very severe, and I have hyperparathyroidism, and we were trying to determine if that's primary or secondary, since my forearm bone density is actually worse than in my spine, and that's indicative of primary hyperparathyroidism, not secondary. And secondary could have been caused by my Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and my body not absorbing calcium and stuff correctly, which has probably contributed to my osteoporosis. So we wanted to see what was going on with that. So I went to the endocrinologist. He agreed that it sounded like it was primary, had me do a 24-hour urine collection to see how much calcium I'm spilling, and some tests. Well, it came back my calcium was low, not high. He said, well, let's wait 3 months, drastically increase your calcium and vitamin D intake, and come back in 3 months and we'll see what that shows. If it shows, increase in spilling calcium or whatever, then he will do an ultrasound of the parathyroid glands and send me to a surgeon, because the only way to fix primary is to remove the offending parathyroid glands. You have 4. You only need like a half of one gland to function. So we'll see if that's on the table or not. He gave me medicine to help with my hypoglycemia. Didn't know there was such a thing, but, is helping me with that. And then I went to the rheumatologist because he treats fibro. He can treat osteoporosis. I have an immunity deficiency, I guess you would call it. My IgG is low, like 200 or more points below the normal range. And then when I had the IgG subclasses tested, and there are 4 of those, my IgG1 is also well below normal. IgG1 is the immunity for ear, nose, throat, and lungs. And I've had pneumonia a couple times. I've had quite a few, sinus and throat infections. I had my tonsils and adenoids out when I was like 3. But I still had infections. And of course, I'm deaf in my left ear, 100% deaf. Had 30 years ago a radical mastoidectomy. They had to go in and take it all out. I had infections so bad. And then I've had 3 other surgeries since then. I had, let's see, I had a Baja bone conduction hearing aid implant put in. I had something else, I can't remember. But anyway, I've had like 4 surgeries on my ear. I have mixed hearing loss of both neural and conductive, and it's 100% deafness. So without the hearing aid, I don't hear in this ear. And because, stupid me, I did not get hearing aids immediately after my original surgery like they told me to, because I was in my early 20s, it damaged my hearing, and my brain wasn't processing sounds right. And when it got so bad that it was really causing an impact, and it was causing an impact because I'm losing hearing in the other ear. So that was not good. So anyway, got that resolved. But I don't know what the IgG deficiencies mean. I don't know what the rheumatologist is going to do about those. So that is I went a couple weeks ago. We're waiting on a bazillion labs. He does labs completely different because he's a specialist, far more detail, not the normal typical labs that any other doctor would run, much more detailed. And he said, because I had labs done a couple weeks before I went to him for the first time, and my RA factor was elevated. Now, not drastically elevated, but it had increased above normal for the first time. And of course, I have multiple joint pain. But I didn't know that would mean anything. You know how you have levels off and doctors go, oh, it's not that bad. It could be, 4 times this. And, like it's some contest as to who's got the worst, whatever. So I was kind of expecting him to say, oh, no, that's not bad. You're okay. Let's just watch it. And he's like, you have rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, okay. I said, but my joints aren't swollen and red. He goes, well, it's early stages, but it's increased. And I said, well, can it increase? He goes, oh, yeah, it definitely can. You can develop it later in life. And I'm like, alrighty then. And he did a joint test. And of course, I have multiple joints that hurt. And I wasn't sure if it was because fibroarthritis. Well, it's rheumatoid arthritis. So he diagnosed me with that, put me on a rheumatoid arthritis medication. He said, we caught it early. If you go on this medication, we can kind of minimize damage. So I don't have the worst case, but we're trying to prevent it from getting there. And then he ran a bunch of other tests for all these other autoimmune deficiency diseases, and his nurse said the minor things will go into the portal and I will call you and tell you if anything's off. But she said there are certain tests that he won't let go into the portal. He wants to talk to you face to face to explain those tests. I'm like, okay. And she goes, and I can't tell you what they are. I'm like, okay, can you wink at me on the phone? Is there like some special code or something you can let me know? Well, she called me and he wanted me on another thyroid medication because my free T4 is low, like 1 point above the bottom end of the range. And he wants me to have a T4 only medication. I do have hypothyroidism and I'm on Armour, which is the T3, T4, and I need more T4. So he wants me to be on that. I said, can you send that to my endocrinologist? I said, because that's what he handles. And I would rather have everybody, stay in their lane, whatever their specialty is. And he said, yeah. So he sent it over there. Then she called me Friday and said, and I got the results on the CBC that my hematocrit is low and my MCH is low, which is all indicative of anemia. And of course, I get iron infusions because of my gastric bypass. I don't absorb iron, but thankfully my levels are slow to drop and no supplements that I take work, but it is pretty slow to drop. And it's like been a year and a half, and she called me to tell me my ferritin was low. And I'm like, well, that means it's infusion time. So I called my hematologist this morning. I went over there. He ran labs, and he's like, your ferritin's normal, your hematocrit is normal. Why are you here? Because I was told to come here. I said, I was told it was low. So I don't know. I mean, it clearly has like red line from my rheumatologist, results low, and it's all in red bold, and I don't know. He runs things differently, so maybe his is more sensitive than the hematologist. I have no idea, but I just kind of like wasted my time going over there today, and I have to go back in 6 months to see where I'm at. I will eventually, of course, get another infusion, but it doesn't look like it's going to be now. And with my recent ear infection, my ear surgeon said, well, there's nothing we can do because you can't see from the outside into the ear. No other doctor is going to be able to look in there and go, oh, you have an ear infection. The only way you can tell if there's anything going on is through a brain MRI. And I'm like, I don't want to keep having those. So he said, if you have symptoms, call me. We'll put you on antibiotics. He said, in the meantime, take Zyrtec or whatever to try to control sinus fluid. So we got that going on. I'm on disability. I don't know if I had posted that. I got my folding electric wheelchair to help because with my POT symptoms, if I stand too long or walk too far, I'll pass out and, my POTS flares up. Of course, with my fibro and my spine issues, I've got canal stenosis, foraminal stenosis, Tarlov Cysts, numerous hemangiomas, and I've got one in particular at my C5, 6 that is infiltrative. And so I'm trying to find a specialist who deals with these things. I don't know that my Tarlov cysts are large enough to be the biggest concern, but my hemangiomas most definitely are. So I need to look into that, and most doctors will tell you they are asymptomatic. Well, mine aren't. I absolutely have pain in those areas. And with my osteoporosis, the way they view hemangiomas is that they're like an incidental finding, and until it collapses and fractures your vertebrae, you're fine. I'm like, well, I've got osteoporosis. Do I need one more thing that's going to potentially fracture my vertebrae? I don't think so. And I'm a high fall risk with my balance issues already. That's why I either use a cane, my rollator, or my wheelchair, depending on where I'm going and what I have to do, because if I fall, I'm at a very high fracture risk to fracture my spine, whether it's from the osteoporosis and or the hemangiomas. So I'm trying to determine, do I have enough energy in me to even seek out a surgeon or whatever to try to figure all that out. Right now my fibro is doing good. I'm not in a flare. My occipital neuralgia is flaring on the right side. So when I go back to my rheumatologist next week, who thankfully is also a pain management doctor, he's going to do a steroid injection in that occipital nerve. Been up since 2 a.m. because I can't lay on it. It's like all inflamed. It's like an inflamed nerve, and if you touch it, it hurts. So it's hard to sleep. And talk to him about spinal injections to try to deal with the pain and things in the various areas of my spine. So I think it's good that I went to him. I think he was really helpful. You know how you go to doctors, there's things wrong. Not everything that you have wrong is surgery worthy or the worst case scenario. And the way I look at it is, this is not a contest. Chronic illness isn't a contest. I'm not trying to win an award for being the worst. But that doesn't mean that I don't have pain. That doesn't mean that I don't have issues. But sometimes doctors go, well, it could be way worse. What are you complaining about? I'm like, but this doctor was very understanding. And, his view is, let's be a little bit more proactive on these issues that you have instead of waiting until they get worse or you're suffering. You've got pain. It's bad for you. So that was kind of refreshing. Other than that, I'm doing good. I've got my service dog training, Carter. He's laying here with me right now. I'm in bed resting because I've been up since 2 a.m. and had a hematologist appointment. So, did hair and makeup, and the hematologist was not terribly impressed. He didn't comment at all. I'm like, dude, You know what it takes for me to not look like death warmed over? I would have thought you would have been more impressed by that. But anyway, Carter's laying here next to me, and we are getting ready to take a nap. But I wanted to check in. My mood is good. Don't think I posted, but I was inpatient in a behavioral unit in May because I attempted suicide. So my depression has been diagnosed and upgraded to bipolar, not bipolar 2, bipolar 1. And of course, I have the general anxiety disorder, so they did some medicine changes. It was a scary ordeal because I passed out on the kitchen floor. My kids found me. They thought it was hypoglycemic episode, and they were trying to get me to drink soda, and I wasn't responding. They had to call 911. EMTs came, went to the emergency room. All of my family was called. They're all in. Apparently, they were all sobbing and crying. It was a very, very traumatic event, not just for me, but for all my family. It was kind of an eye-opening thing, and I honestly think that a lot of my issues are related to my mental illness. I mean, mental illness and depression can actually cause physical pain. It certainly affects how you deal with pain from other things, how you handle all the other things that I have, and deal with my very long list of health issues. It makes everything a bigger struggle, at least for me. And I think that's almost worse than some of the other things that I have. Certainly makes it worse for me to deal with it. So I've got my service dog. I got him after I got out of the inpatient behavioral place. They suggested that, yes, a service dog would be good for you. My family doctor and my psychiatrist all agreed that with all my health issues, especially my balance issues, my POTS, my migraines, my depression and anxiety, all these different things, there are multiple tasks that Carter can do for me that will help me, from deep pressure therapy for anxiety, alerting family or something if I fall, get medicine for me, pick things up, things like that. So he is going to be a huge help with multiple tasks. He's still training. He will be 6 months old this next week on the 10th of September, 2019. So, and he's a standard poodle, and he's huge. So I have toy poodles, and I'm like, oh my goodness, he's like a horse. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on. Just a quick update. I will try as I'm able to provide updates, hopefully encourage different people for this, in similar situations, or just share my journey because everybody's journey's different. So anyway, that's my update, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good day.